Have you ever wondered why some people seem so serene in the midst of chaos, as if they were carrying a well-kept secret about life? What if I told you that there is a way to master this calm, to remain firm and unshakable even when everything seems to be falling apart? Here, you will discover something profound, almost secret, that transforms pain and uncertainty into strength. Are you ready to discover this mystery? Long ago, the sages of Stoicism offered us a kind of manual for navigating life with greater clarity and tranquility. Today, we will explore teachings that not only promise, but show how to transform difficulties into a path of silent and at the same time powerful strength. Each Stoic principle carries within itself a key, a way to adjust our worldview. In this video, you will understand how to apply these concepts in a practical way, and who knows, even how to find peace in moments that seem anything but peaceful. 1. The art of listening without haste. There is an almost enigmatic power in listening attentively, without the urge to respond immediately. For those who are patient, the act of listening reveals more about human nature than any hurriedly spoken word. It is in the stillness of silence that nuances emerge, that deeper truths are revealed, like a sleeping city that, at the first light of dawn, reveals secrets hidden in the shadows. For many, listening is an uncomfortable weight, a gap between one's own voice and the noise of another. But for those who understand the true art of listening, it is an act of generosity, a window into the heart of another. Stoicism teaches us that by listening attentively, we learn to see the world beyond our own limited perspectives. This deliberate silence allows our judgments to dissolve, like a light mist dissipating before the sun. Listening becomes an act of humility, an acceptance that we do not have all the answers. And in each word of another, we find the opportunity to discover something new, something that could perhaps transform the way we see life. In this exercise of empathy, silence is not empty but full of meaning. Listening offers us a rare moment of true connection, and paradoxically, the more time we dedicate to listening, the stronger and clearer our thoughts become. After all, listening is a form of observation. By making room for other people's stories, we begin to better understand our own. It is in this gesture of unhurried absorption that the Stoic finds serenity, a peace that is not imposed but cultivated. Listening is, therefore, one of the paths to achieving tranquility, as it teaches us to see the world with renewed eyes, without the veil of haste that obscures everything. 2. The unshakable independence of the self. For those who desire a serene soul, there is a Stoic principle that shines with clarity: the independence of the self. It is a golden lesson, like an ancient jewel that, despite the years, never loses its shine. Throughout life, we are frequently challenged by other people's opinions, judgments and criticisms that hang over us like shadows that seem inescapable. But true strength does not bend to the whims of external voices. It is born from the conviction that only we ourselves know our journey, and it is in this silent recognition that a freedom is hidden that few dare to explore. Independence of the self is not arrogance, but a celebration of one's own essence. Stoicism teaches us that the opinions of others should not drag us into the winds of judgment, but rather strengthen us like rocks that remain unshakable. By ceasing to seek approval incessantly, we free ourselves from the need to please and embrace the strength that arises from self-knowledge. It is like building a fortress in our heart, immune to the winds of criticism. Thus, by cultivating this self-sufficiency, we discover a peace that is only achieved when we accept our vulnerability without masks, without adornments. This state of independence is, in fact, an affirmation of authenticity, a conscious choice to be who we truly are without asking permission from the world. We are not alone, we are our own company, and this is what Stoicism celebrates: the ability to find contentment within ourselves, without the need for the approval of others. On this path, we become not only independent but serene, a peace that cannot be shaken by external voices, because it is a peace that comes from within, anchored in the very essence of being. 3. Prudence in facing adversity. There is a subtle wisdom in approaching obstacles with prudence, as if each difficulty were a rock carefully shaped by time. For the Stoic, adversity is not a reason to despair, but an opportunity to practice self-control and patience. Each challenge, seen through this prism, is less a threat and more an invitation to internal overcoming. Wisdom is not shown in those who seek shortcuts, but in those who, facing the tortuous paths, they remain faithful to the purpose of growing, of evolving silently, without complaints. When facing difficulties, we learn to recognize the fragility of our own expectations. It is these expectations, often fueled by haste and illusion, that make us stumble. But when we see each obstacle with calm eyes, we understand that true strength lies in the calm acceptance of what we cannot change and in the dedicated focus on what is within our reach. Prudence is not weakness, but a sign of maturity, a deliberate choice to act with balance, preserving our energy for what really matters. Thus, the Stoic chooses to react in a measured way, avoiding the chaos of impulsive reactions. It is not an act of surrender, but of conscious control over emotion. And it is in this control over oneself that the individual finds a unique peace, because he realizes that adversity is, in fact, a teacher that challenges and strengthens. Prudence, therefore, is not a shield against the world, but an armor of serenity, a choice that transforms each stone in the path into a step towards something greater. After all, storms always pass, but what remains is the ability to go through them with dignity and tranquility. 4. The balance between reason and emotion. In a world where emotion often takes the reins, Stoicism proposes an elegant dance between feeling and thinking. This philosophy does not deny emotions, but welcomes them as part of the human experience, directing them with the rigor of reason. As experienced sailors, we learn that it is necessary to follow both the wind and the stars, allowing each emotion to have its place, but guiding them with the firm helm of the mind. This harmony between feeling and thinking is, without a doubt, an art that requires practice and discernment. Understanding emotions is more than simply feeling them. It is observing their internal currents, their oscillations and deviations, without allowing oneself to be submerged. For the Stoic, emotions are companions on the journey, not leaders. We recognize their whispers and gently direct their voices so that they resonate in tune with our reason. This balance saves us from the excesses that, in other times, would lead us to hasty reactions and avoidable regrets. By uniting emotion and reason, we become observers of ourselves, capable of responding to the world with rare discernment. We do not ignore what we feel, but neither are we governed by these feelings. This balance does not transform us into cold beings, but into people whose compassion is guided by judgment and whose justice is tempered by empathy. It is in this harmony that the Stoic finds his true strength, a serenity that is not afraid to feel, but that also does not lose its way in the midst of internal storms. In the end, this combination of reason and emotion makes us whole, beings capable of living intensely, but with a serene mastery over what pulses within us. 5. The power of living in the present. For the Stoic, the I. Present is not just a fleeting moment between the past and the future. It is the essence of the human experience. There is a singular virtue in living fully in the present moment, not as a refuge, but as the soil where all the seeds of the future are planted and where the echoes of the past are silenced. In the art of living in the now, we learn to free ourselves from the invisible chains of expectations and regrets. We let go of the anxieties that tomorrow brings and embrace the present with the serenity of those who know that, in this very moment, we have the power to act and to be. In this context, living in the present is not an escape, but an act of courage. It is here in this moment that we find the chance to reinvent ourselves. Focusing on the now allows us to avoid the burden of uncertain futures and not fall into the trap of what could have been. The present is the only space of time where we are truly free, where our choices have weight and our actions have meaning. When we embrace this reality, we transform our perspective. Worries become lighter and joys more tangible. This practice, as simple as it may seem, requires deep attention, a willingness to observe what surrounds us with fresh eyes and an open mind. By finding beauty and purpose in what is simple and immediate, we realize that the present is more than a passage between 2 points. It is, in fact, the point of greatest power we possess. And by cultivating presence, we gain the ability to build a more solid tomorrow, because each moment lived fully becomes the foundation for something greater and more meaningful. Thus, living in the present is embracing life in its purest and most powerful form. 6. The relief of letting go. There is a liberating lightness in the practice of letting go. For the Stoic, letting go is not a loss, but a recognition that true value lies in that which is internal and immutable. To cling to what is beyond our control is to walk with the weight of unnecessary accumulating worries and anxieties that only obscure our vision. By letting go, we allow our minds to breathe, our hearts to expand, and our fears to dissipate like mist before the morning sun. The act of letting go does not imply indifference, but a deep understanding of the impermanence of things. We observe the constant flow of life and accept with serenity that everything is in motion. People, circumstances, and even the most intense feelings transform over time. Embracing this truth grants us practical wisdom and spiritual relief, because by letting go, we do not abandon what matters to us, but rather allow each thing to follow its natural course. Letting go is therefore a practice of trust. We trust that life will bring what is needed at the right time, and by releasing what does not belong to us, we make room for what really matters. This space is a refuge for peace, a fertile ground where we can cultivate what brings us purpose and fulfillment. In this sense, letting go is an art that requires practice, a delicate dance between desire and acceptance. It is a choice to live without the invisible chains that bind us to an intangible past or an uncertain future. And in the end, by letting go of what we cannot hold on to, we find true freedom. 7. The art of resilience. Resilience is, at its core, an exercise in quiet strength and inner adaptability. Stoicism, with its emphasis on accepting challenges as an inevitable part of the human experience, teaches that in order to thrive, we must learn to endure and rise from our own adversities. Resilience is not a rigid armor, but a lightness that comes from within, an ability to bend like a reed that resists the wind without ever breaking. Thus, for the Stoic, difficulties are not barriers, but steps on the long ladder of self-knowledge and personal growth. Those who embrace resilience develop a clear perception that suffering, however uncomfortable, has the power to mold us into something stronger and deeper. Each challenge, each setback becomes an opportunity to refine our emotional skills, to exercise patience, and to learn the value of persistence. Resilience in this sense is the ability to see beyond the present moment of pain, to find meaning in the process of overcoming. Instead of fearing difficulties, the Stoic accepts them, knowing that it is through them that a solid and unshakable character is formed. This vision unfolds in our ability to react to the unexpected. Instead of being victims of circumstances, we assume the role of protagonists of our own story. Resilience is built in small moments, in the choices to continue when everything seems adverse, in the silence in which we listen to the inner voice that encourages us not to give up. By practicing resilience, we gradually build an internal strength that allows us to navigate more safely through life's uncertainties. It is not about shielding ourselves from adversity, but about an unshakable willingness to face it with dignity and courage. For the Stoic, resilience is also a form of freedom. Freedom from being controlled by circumstances, from not giving in to despair when faced with the inevitable. This is the true power of resilience, the ability to find peace and strength even in the midst of chaos. Resilience, therefore, is not a permanent state, but a constant practice of starting over. With each new difficulty, we exercise the power to be reborn, to reinvent ourselves, and to emerge stronger, wiser, and more aware of our own ability to face the world. In short, resilience teaches us to transform suffering into wisdom, pain into learning. It allows us to move forward, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for each battle won, for each scar that reminds us of our strength. Cultivating resilience is, therefore, an act of self-love and faith in our own ability to overcome, a journey that reveals to us that we are, after all, much stronger than we imagine. 8. The search for self-discipline. For the Stoic, self-discipline is the key that opens the doors to true freedom. It is in the ability to control one's impulses, to resist momentary temptations, that lies the strength of character necessary for a full and balanced life. Self-discipline is not a burden or a sacrifice. It is, rather, an act of conscious choice, a decision to act in accordance with our deepest values, even when the easier path would be to give in to fleeting desires. By cultivating self-discipline, we choose to move closer to our highest potential, gradually transforming ourselves into better versions of ourselves. Being disciplined requires, first and foremost, a deep understanding of who we are and what we truly want to achieve. For the Stoic, this process begins with sincere reflection on and what is truly important. It is not about repressing pleasures, but about discerning between the pleasures that elevate us and those that divert us from our greater purpose. Self-discipline is therefore a tool for freedom, as it frees us from the invisible chains of desire that prevent us from acting with wisdom and intention. The practice of self-discipline involves small daily acts of self-control, a process of gradual and continuous construction. Each choice, no matter how small, contributes to the strengthening of this ability. Over time, self-discipline becomes second nature, an internal compass that guides us to make decisions aligned with our goals and principles. It is what gives us the clarity to resist immediacy, to reject what is easy in favor of what is right, and to pursue what is lasting rather than what is fleeting. In this sense, self-discipline makes us masters of ourselves. It teaches us that true strength lies not in avoiding temptations or desires, but in choosing consciously and deliberately not to be a slave to them. By practicing self-discipline, we develop mastery over our thoughts and actions, allowing our choices to be guided by reason rather than impulse. Thus, self-discipline is more than a moral attribute. It is a path to self-fulfillment. It allows us to shape our lives according to our values, build meaningful relationships, and pursue a greater purpose. And in the stillness that comes from self-discipline, we find a peace that cannot be shaken, for it is the result of our own choice, of our ability to remain steadfast, even in the face of the most subtle temptations. The pursuit of self-discipline is therefore a journey of self-discovery and empowerment, a proof that true freedom lies in knowing how to choose each day the life we want to live. 9. The virtue of patience. Patience is a rare virtue, often misunderstood, and yet essential for those who wish to walk the path of wisdom and self-mastery. Being patient is not simply tolerating the passing of time or enduring challenging situations with resignation, but learning to value the process, to understand that each experience, good or difficult, has its purpose. For the Stoic, patience is a cultivated skill, a practice of inner calm that allows us to see beyond the worldly rush and immediate rewards. Patience teaches us to observe things clearly, not to be hasty in our reactions, and to avoid hasty judgments. When we cultivate patience, we give space for wisdom to develop and for solutions to reveal themselves naturally. Thus, we face challenges with a calm mind, not agitated by expectations, but guided by the serenity that only time can bring. Learning to wait is an exercise in trusting in the unfolding of events, a proof that we understand the value of the present moment and its future impact. Thus, patience is not a passive virtue, but an act of active self-control. It is a calm strength that allows us to embrace the present without losing sight of what we want to build. And it is also a reflection of humility. We recognize that we do not have control over all of life's variables, but we accept that time is an ally, a teacher that teaches us about ourselves and others. Therefore, those who master patience achieve an invaluable balance between action and waiting, developing a wisdom that transcends immediate desire and that values the natural course of things. Patience, in this sense, is the faithful companion of resilience and personal growth. 10. Gratitude as a daily practice. Gratitude is a transformative practice, an act of recognition and appreciation for the gifts, large or small, that we receive throughout life. For the Stoic, being grateful is much more than just a momentary feeling. It is a philosophy of life that teaches us to look at the world and our own journey with eyes of appreciation, recognizing beauty even in the hardest difficulties and lessons. Gratitude connects us to the present, to everything we already have and everything we already are, freeing us from the constant longing for what is missing. Practicing gratitude is remembering that every experience, whether positive or challenging, brings with it an opportunity for growth and learning. It is an invitation to recognize the value of small moments and to see abundance in the simplicity of everyday life. And contrary to what many people imagine, gratitude does not depend on perfect conditions. It flourishes precisely in situations in which we decide to focus on what we have instead of what we lack. This daily practice transforms our perspective, creating in us a generous heart, less inclined to complain and more willing to embrace life in its entirety. The Stoic who adopts gratitude learns to be resilient in the face of difficulties because he understands that each obstacle is a chance to grow stronger and become a better version of yourself. Thus, gratitude becomes an act of humility, of recognition of our interdependence and the privilege of each new day. Therefore, gratitude, when practiced sincerely, not only helps us to face life's uncertainties with greater ease, but also provides us with a sense of peace and contentment. It teaches us that, in the end, we are all recipients of a continuous present, and that life, with its ups and downs, is a gift to be honored. 11. The essence of self-knowledge. Knowing yourself is an act of courage and one of the most complex adventures in existence. This search involves exploring hidden aspects of our personality, feelings, and motivations, often covered by layers of external expectations and self-delusions. In the process of discovering who we really are, we leave behind the artificial images that we have built over time and begin to see our own essence with all its uniqueness and complexity. Self-knowledge allows us to distinguish between what truly defines us and what is the result of outside influences. This clarity not only strengthens our character, but also increases our resilience and teaches us to value our choices based on a sense of authenticity. When we get closer to who we really are, we find an inner balance that prepares us to deal with external challenges in a more serene and confident way. The practice of self-knowledge requires patience and honesty. It is necessary to accept both our qualities and our imperfections, recognizing that we all carry shadows that need to be integrated into our vision of ourselves. However, by embracing these less apparent facets, we gain the freedom to be who we really are, free from the expectations and judgments imposed by the world. Thus, self-knowledge is a continuous unveiling. By deepening our perception of ourselves, we make room for a life guided by truth and genuine growth. Each step taken on this path brings us closer to an authentic existence, where decisions and actions are in perfect harmony with our true nature. 12. The power of inner silence. Silence of the mind is a practice that, at first glance, may seem simple, but it proves to be challenging in the modern world, where we are constantly stimulated by information and demands. Inner silence is a conscious pause that connects us to a deeper layer of peace and introspection, allowing us to set aside distractions and delve into our own being. It is in this serene space that we find true clarity and a strength that we often do not know we have. Stoicism teaches that inner tranquility is an indispensable refuge for the human mind, especially in times of turbulence and uncertainty. Inner silence allows us to observe our own emotions without rushing to act or react, which makes us more sensible and less influenced by the circumstances of the moment. In practice, it is as if we learn to contemplate our thoughts from a distance, maintaining the freedom to choose which ones deserve attention. Dedicating ourselves to this state of stillness is cultivating a kind of invisible shield that protects us from external pressures. By letting go of the constant need to respond to what is happening around us, we find peace independent of circumstances, a space where nothing and no one can affect our serenity. This inner silence is not empty, but rather a state of presence and awareness, a fertile ground for true wisdom. By valuing this inner peace, we discover that it is possible to live in harmony with the world without being swallowed up by it. Inner silence is, ultimately, a path to emotional and mental self-sufficiency. It allows us to access wholeness even in the midst of chaos, and is a practice that helps us live more fully, free from distractions, and deeply connected to ourselves. 13. The value of true relationships. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we often forget that the value of relationships lies not in quantity, but in depth. Cultivating a true friendship, nurturing sincere love, or even building a genuine connection with someone requires more than polite gestures or empty words. It requires investing in understanding, respect, and above all, presence. These relationships are not fueled by superficiality, but by the commitment to being truly present in each other's space. Deep relationships reveal our most hidden facets and often our most vulnerable weaknesses. It is not in the brilliance of first impressions that we find the treasure of connections, but rather in sincere exchanges and moments of genuine sharing. It is in these moments that we realize that behind each human being, there is a unique, complex story, rich in emotions that, when shared, creates an unbreakable bond. However, we cannot forget that for these relationships to grow stronger, it is necessary to constantly cultivate trust and empathy. Words may be the first step, but the attitudes that support them are what truly shape the foundation of the relationship. Love, friendship, or any other type of genuine connection need fertile soil, which only honesty and mutual effort can provide. If there is something that makes relationships truly meaningful, it is the fact that in them we find not only the reflection of the other, but also a mirror of ourselves. They are what teach us to be better, that transform us and challenge us to grow. When we surrender ourselves to the true meaning of human relationships, we are blessed with one of the purest and most enriching experiences in life. 14. The importance of persisting in the face of adversity. Life often demands more from us than we are willing to give. In difficult times, the temptation to give up becomes a constant presence, whispering in our ears that the fight is not worth it, that the effort is in vain. But it is precisely in these moments, when fatigue and hopelessness threaten to swallow us, that persistence reveals itself as an essential virtue. It is not the easy path that shapes our character, but the obstacles we face and overcome. Persistence is not a matter of passively resisting the storm, but of learning to navigate it. It is not a blind struggle, but a conscious choice to move forward, even when the signs around us suggest that victory is unattainable. It is in difficulties that the true human spirit reveals itself. It is in moments of greatest adversity that we discover strengths within ourselves that were previously unthinkable. Each failure is in fact a step towards success, an opportunity to learn, to rise again, and to continue. However, persistence does not mean ignoring our limits or acting without reflection. It's knowing when the battle is worth it, when the effort is justified, and when we can find wiser ways to achieve our goals. Persistence is about transforming failures into learning experiences and having the courage to get back up after each stumble. Each step, no matter how small, is a victory over fear and doubt, and an affirmation of our determination. If we can learn to embrace adversity as part of our journey, we will be better able to appreciate victories, no matter how subtle, and recognize that in the end, what really matters is not the obstacles themselves, but how we choose to face them. Persistence is an art, and like all art, it requires patience, dedication, and an unshakable faith in the power of the next step. 15. The power of authenticity. In a world full of appearances where masks become more necessary than the face itself, the big question arises: what does it mean to be truly authentic? Authenticity is not something that is acquired over time, nor is it imposed. It emerges from the courage to be vulnerable, from the freedom that comes from letting go of other people's expectations and being who we really are, beyond all conventions and social pressures. Being authentic is, above all, an act of silent rebellion against imposed expectations. Society, with its standards and cliches, often tries to mold us to its own measure. However, those who dare to be themselves, who dare not conform, are the ones who truly touch the world around them. Authenticity lies in the courage to say no to the norms that suffocate and say yes to what resonates within us. It is not a search for perfection or an insane desire to stand out, but a genuine surrender to who we are without fear of being misunderstood or rejected. The beauty of authenticity is not in the number of people who understand us, but in the peace of being true to our essence. Sometimes life's journey is a search for that true expression, where we let go of the need for approval and surrender to the simple pleasure of being who we are without adornment. By embracing authenticity as our guide, we learn to relate more deeply to others. After all, true bonds can only be built when people show themselves, without filters or disguises, as they truly are. And when that happens, there's a kind of magic in the air, as if the universe is finally aligning itself to receive what is most pure in us. 16. The freedom to choose your own path. Freedom is a word that often echoes as a distant and unattainable ideal, something that belongs to the bold or the privileged. However, true freedom lies not in an abstract concept, but in the choice of the path we follow, day after day, in our personal journey. It is our choices that define our freedom, not chance or luck. Every choice, no matter how simple or complex, carries within it the weight of our autonomy, our ability to decide the direction we will give our lives. Choosing, however, is not an impersonal act or without consequences. Freedom demands responsibility, because when we make decisions, we also assume the consequences of those choices. And that is precisely what makes freedom so powerful. It gives us the power to shape our destiny, but it also challenges us to face the results of our actions head on. This is the delicate dance between the desire for freedom and the acceptance that our choices belong to us and shape us. Fear often prevents us from choosing, paralyzing us in the face of the vastness of possibilities. The fear of making mistakes, of failing, of disappointment, becomes a constant shadow over our heads. However, true freedom is not in the absence of mistakes, but in the ability to choose, even knowing the risks involved in each decision. The most important thing is not whether we are right or wrong, but that by acting, we take control of our own story. When we choose our path, we also choose who we want to be. Freedom then reveals itself as a continuous journey, where each step taken is a reaffirmation of our will and our individuality. There is no perfect path, but there is the unique beauty of following our own, with all its uncertainties, joys, and pains. 17. The price of freedom. The price of freedom is something that often goes unnoticed by hurried minds and souls seeking quick answers. What do they tell us about being free? That freedom is achieved by those who take risks, by those who fearlessly launch themselves into the unknown. But there is always a price, and it can be more expensive than we imagine. Freedom demands detachment from that which keeps us tied down, comfort, familiarity, certainties that, although limiting, give us security. Man, in his insatiable search for autonomy, finds himself faced with dilemmas that are not easy to resolve. It is as if freedom were a delicate tapestry, woven with the threads of difficult choices and self-denial, and whoever dares to possess it must learn to deal with the solitude it imposes. Sometimes, freedom is a cruel mirror that reflects our insecurities, our deepest fears. It forces us to face the unknown, to walk without a map, guided only by our intuition. True freedom is not the absence of restrictions, but the ability to reinvent oneself in the face of them. It is not a permanent state, but a continuous movement. A constant struggle to remain true to who we are without losing our essence along the way. Therefore, the price of freedom is not measured in material goods or titles, but in the ability to remain true to oneself, even when the world demands that we adapt, that we conform. And so, whoever chooses freedom must be prepared to lose a lot, to lose what is comfortable, what is predictable, what brings comfort. But at the same time, you gain something immeasurable, the chance to finally be who you are, without masks, without fears, without regrets. 18. The reflection of the past in the journey to the future. The traces of the past are never completely erased. They remain like shadows that creep silently, still present, still in some way, of who we have become. The truth about the past is that it is a mirror that we cannot escape. No matter how much we try to live in the present or look to the future, it will always be there, engraved in our memories, in our choices. The past is a collection of fragments, pieces that in some way form the complete picture of our history. In each step taken, there is the mark of a time that cannot be undone. However, this does not mean that we should allow ourselves to be dominated by it. On the contrary, past moments should serve as learning experiences, not as prisons. True power lies in the ability to look at the past without letting it imprison us, without allowing it to dictate our actions now. In the search for our future, we are often guided by the lessons of the past, but we also need to learn to make peace with it. It is not about forgetting or denying its lessons, but about understanding that we are beings in constant evolution. What we were does not define who we will be, and what we have done does not limit what we can achieve. The future, in its essence, is a blank canvas, where today's choices are the brushstrokes that will shape our destiny. Therefore, the past is the foundation on which we build our future, but it should not be a burden that prevents us from moving forward. It should be a reminder that the path, however difficult it may have been, was not in vain. Every scar, every mistake, every success, all are milestones that make us stronger and more capable of embracing what is to come. The journey, after all, is made up of moments that intertwine and transform us, a continuous story that is written with courage and reflection. If you found these principles revealing, know that Stoicism still has a lot to offer. To dive even deeper into this universe of self-knowledge and inner strength, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and don't miss the next videos. With each lesson, we will build together a fortress of serenity and wisdom. So like, share, and let's continue this journey together.